The children's comic Beano is under fire, believe it or not, this time for promoting junk food. The British Medical Journal has raised concerns about references to junk food brands in the comic, which has quizzes on the ultimate food logo, McDonald's and the Nando's menu. Outrageous. The Beano denies promoting junk food brands. I am delighted to say I am joined by the former presenter of Fat Families, absolutely brilliant programme, I must say, Steve Miller. Steve, I love that show. Very, very good indeed. I like all of those kind of shows about, fat people, skinny people, all sorts. Anyway, moving on to the main reason why you're here. Is the Beano doing wrong by our children, promoting junk food like this?
Well, when I came across this story, the first thing I thought of was these so-called experts, whoever they are, they need to get out more, really, don't they? Listen, the Beano is damn great stuff for kids and adults. It provides factual entertainment and factual stuff as well, great content. And no, I don't think, every time we see a hot dog on a bit of content on a media platform, it's kind of, how unwise this is. No, I don't think so. I also want to say, and I wrote it down here, that the Beano actually was selected by Veg Power to promote healthy fruit and veg for children, and they do it really well. The other thing, of course, Emily, is that what we have to remember is we cannot hide children away from everything. If you keep hiding kids away from the real world, they're never going to learn. And also, I think what we would potentially find as well is if, let's say the Beano were just plugging all healthy fruit and veg, you've got to eat healthy fruit and veg, you'd have the other argument coming back, doing this is going to trigger eating disorders. So I say up the Beano, and I say the Beano the Beano is not responsible for making us all butterballs. That's what I say.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, it is quite remarkable that one of the world's leading medical journals would spend time and resources looking into what the Beano is advertising to children. It does seem that perhaps they've, done everything else they must have done if that's what they're looking into now. But do you think, just in general, it is bad for children to be exposed to too much HFSS content? That's the government's acronym for high fat, salt and sugar.
It depends what you mean by too much. It's about telling children the truth. It's about discussing the real world with kids. And the fundamental player here is the parent or the parents. And what they should be doing, I encourage all parents to do, is to nurture children in 80-20 living, 80% eating pretty well, 20% a bit of what you fancy, get out and play with the kids, educate the kids. Don't be afraid to let children know that being obese is dangerous. You see, when you suggest that sort of thing these days, it's kind of hush, hush. You shouldn't do that because it could trigger eating disorders. I say cobblers to that, to be quite honest. As long as it's done constructively, as long as it's done, in the real world by saying, being too fat isn't great, being too thin isn't great either. And it's about getting somewhere in the middle. Then that's the parent's job. The reality is, unfortunately, whilst we have some great parental models out there, many, of course, we do, we also have a number of parents that actually, when I look around, couldn't care less.
Well, this is the thing, Steve. I was going to ask you, what do we do? Because there are parents out there who will set an excellent example to their children and make sure they eat a diverse and varied diet. What do we do about the parents who couldn't care less and who are obese, 10-ton Tessies themselves?
Well, I quite like the way you say it as it is, and I think that's what we need to do when it comes to parents that suffer with can't be bothered-itis. And a very sad story we've recently heard. I followed this one, very, very sad, a child dying of obesity, related illnesses, because the parents were feeding this child takeaway after takeaway. And do you know what? We have got to get tougher, and we've got to get more blunt with our message as a society to say to parents, it's your job, they're your children, you will be supported, of course, and we do support them in this country, but it's your job to rear your children. And it might sound blunt, but you have to think before you have kids. Think before you have them. And frankly, if it means fining parents, you know, if it means fining parents and issuing more, absolutely. Listen, the one thing this country really doesn't like doing is being a bit more direct, being more direct. I say fine the parents. I say warn the parents. I say send them to the nick if they are really abusing their children by letting them becoming too fat.
Well, there you go. You heard it first from Steve Miller there. Fine parents if you make your children obese. There you go. I will have to thank you very much indeed, Steve Miller. We have a comment from the Beano spokesperson who said, "We care deeply about our young audience, making every decision with their interests at heart. The article does not, in our view, accurately reflect the overall Beano.com experience."